We live in interesting times. Today's stories. What lies beneath? Singapore plans a subterranean future. The appetite for concrete is eating away at Cypriot mountains. Lebanon activists are in uphill battle against illegal quarries. Animals struggle to survive in drought-hit Botswana. Australia downgrades its outlook for Great Barrier Reef to very poor. Germany asks Polish forgiveness 80 years after the World War II outbreak. India sees smartphone boom despite economic downturn. President Trump launches new Pentagon command for space warfare. Shanghai hosts the World Artificial Intelligence Conference. Plus, Red Cross raises awareness and tackles rumors on Ebola virus in Benin. This is Eagle News, broadcasting from Washington, D.C., bringing you stories from around the globe. I am Rose Papa Angeles. Space-starved Singapore has expanded outwards by building into the sea and upwards by constructing high-rises, but planners are now looking underground as they seek new areas for growth. The nation has carefully managed its rapid growth in recent decades to avoid the problems faced by other fast-developing Asian metropolises, such as overcrowding and traffic chaos. But with its population of 5.6 million expected to grow steadily in coming years, authorities are now considering how to better use the space below the streets in a city that is just half the size of Los Angeles. Singapore has already built an underground highway and state-of-the-art air conditioning system, but is now looking to house more facilities beneath the surface in order to optimize land use above it. According to a draft development plan released in March, authorities want to put utilities, transport as well as storage, and industrial facilities underground in order to free up land on the surface. However, there is yet no plans to put housing underground. According to the Urban Redevelopment Authority, which created the development plan, three-dimensional technology will be used to produce subterranean maps, with 3 pilot areas targeted initially. Singapore is the latest city to try to make use of subterranean space. Finland's capital, Helsinki, has tunnels housing car parks, shopping malls, and even swimming pools, while Montreal in Canada has a so-called underground city, a tunnel network connecting key points. In a report commissioned by Samsung about what the world will look like in 50 years, experts predicted the appearance of, quote, earth scrapers, like an inverted skyscraper burrowing downwards from many stories in an attempt to save space in overcrowded cities. Singapore's main method of expansion has been land reclamation from the sea, which has increased the country's area by over a quarter to 720 square kilometers or 280 square miles, with most growth happening since independence in 1965. But reclamation has become more expensive as it moved to deeper waters, while countries that used to sell sand to Singapore have stopped exports due to environmental concerns. Green groups say unregulated sand mining erodes beaches and riverbanks, affecting wildlife and removing natural barriers to flooding, and dredging the seabed can damage ecosystems. Moving facilities underground has advantages beyond saving space, including reduced use of air conditioning, which could save energy in Singapore's tropical climate. Still, building underground in Singapore poses challenges. Construction is difficult beneath an already urbanized environment, while new projects will compete for space with existing subterranean facilities.
We rely heavily on land reclamation to create a space. The next move is to move underground and make use of underground space. So then after this, I'm confident that we will be able to figure out other ways to create a new space for future use for Singapore.
To feed the concrete demands of hotels, tourist residences, and roads under construction in North Cyprus, quarries are eating away at the mountains where the goats of Turkish Cypriot goat herder Jamal graze. Here is the report.
Turkish Cypriot goat farmer Jamal fears for the future of his flock. A few hundred meters from the hut where he milks his goats to make traditional halloumi cheese, quarries supplying materials for a construction boom along the nearby coast are chipping away at the Kyrenia mountain range. On one slope where his goats used to graze, the vegetation has totally disappeared.
I really have to run away from this place because I'm always in danger with every explosion. And if I'm not aware that an explosion is about to take place, the rocks just fall like rain on my animals and sometimes on me. I'm getting injured.
The construction sector and the quarries supplying it have become pillars of the economy here. The Turkish-occupied northern part of the island isn't internationally recognized and is subject to import restrictions, putting pressure on local resources. Dynamite breaks rocks on the mountains into a smaller mass that would become aggregate, a key material in construction. Each day between 12 and 15,000 tons are extracted from quarries near the Pentadactylos Mountains, and this is set to continue.
Today the island is fed by tourism, so we need hotels, guest houses, roads and airports. So we don't have any other choice than to exploit the quarries.
The UN says extracting these materials is one of the major challenges for sustainable development in the 21st century. Residents and environmentalists are worried about the effects the noise and dust pollution are having on the area's biodiversity. This biologist fears it is already too late to reverse the consequences.
One day the quarries will end because there will be no more rocks, stones or mountain to dig up. What will we do then? We won't even have the time to ask the questions because everything will be gone. Measures need to be taken today.
But as investments pour in along the coastline, the future looks bleak for Jamal and his flock.
After years of efforts and even death threats, Abdullah Haddad finally managed to get illegal quarries in his Lebanese village closed. But the victory was short-lived. Braving death threats, Abdullah Haddad fought for years to shut down quarries near his village in Lebanon. The 61-year-old said he and fellow activists received good news at the end of July about the gutted mountain in Ain Dara they had worked to protect. A Lebanese court ordered 16 quarries out of 17 to close. But the victory was short-lived. Haddad said just weeks later the quarries near his village in central Lebanon, a short drive away from a famed cedar reserve, started operating again. In 25 years, more than 2 million cubic meters or over 70.6 million cubic feet were exploited in the area, in what Haddad calls a crime against the mountain. He said, quote, "Most of the operators don't have a permit or work with falsified or expired documents."
هو مجموعة مقالع وكسرات وزفاتات وجبالات بطون هي جزء بسيط من الكوارث من المقالع اللي ممتدة على 1.5 متر مربع من جبل عين دارة.
When he returned to Lebanon after years abroad, Haddad joined a group of locals, including the Ain Dara mayor, who were pushing back against the quarries. Haddad, who used to work in the banking sector in France, said, quote, "Since we started in 2016, we have organized sit-ins, lobbied and launched legal proceedings on 6 occasions. It is a risky undertaking."
بشكل منسق ألفوا عصابة وجهوا لي تهديدات تليفونية وتهديدات بتكسير الإجرين وتهديدات بعدم إنه دعس بعين دارة وتهديدات بالقتل. Okay.
When the verdict was handed down on July 26, dozens of soldiers and police officers deployed to the areas where armed men were often seen near the quarries. Military men, some wearing balaclavas, sealed off the banned operations with red wax, including one area belonging to a powerful political figure. But soon Haddad said most of them had started working again, adding that more than 100 trucks a day were ferrying rocks out of the area. A boom in quarrying started with the long reconstruction that followed Lebanon's 1975 to 1990 civil war. The activity became a top post-conflict industry. Each year, Lebanon exports hundreds of thousands of tons of cement. There are more than 1,300 quarries, over 50 square kilometers, 19 square miles in the country, according to a 2017 satellite survey conducted by the Lebanese army. They are regulated by a 2002 decree, but an Environment Ministry official who asked to remain anonymous said only a dozen of these sites follow regulations. He said, quote, the quarries cause environmental degradation amounting to $610 million a year. Activists blame corruption and indifference. They say the fact that several key political figures have stakes in cement factories has created a climate of impunity. Among them, influential Druze politician Walid Jumblat, who is a shareholder in the nation's third biggest cement factory, Siblan.
طلعنا نحن نعترض على الشيء، نعتصم ونعطي رأينا. نجمع زلمه بكمان خارج الموقع هونيك وجينا ما نرجع نعمل طريق مثل ما كانت وبيهجموا علينا بسلاحهم وبيقوصوا علينا بيروح 5 جرحى وانا كنت تعرضت للموت يعني. بيوتنا انت بتروح على بيتنا بتمسح الطاوله فيها وبتلاقي فيها غبره. الشغله الثانيه القانون تبع المقالع والكسرات التفجير ما بيكونش بالمواد الكيماويه، هن بيفجروا بالمواد الكيماويه وبيعملوا تونيلات بالارض بتاثر على المياه الجوفيه. ادت الى امراض، والامراض اكثر شيء هي بالجهاز التنفسي والجهاز الهضمي، وفي عندنا وفيات كثير بعنده من هالمواد، في عندك بحدود 3-4 وفيات بالسنه. عندك في 3-4 وفيات بالسنه، من هيك نحن بنسميه معمل الموت. ثاني شغله كل البساتين الموجوده عندنا والمواسم التفاح تدنت فوق 95% بسبب هالكسرات وخاصة وجود المعمل.
Around 38,000 livestock depend on the waters of Lake Ngame in northern Botswana. But animals like the lake itself are being badly hit by a crippling drought. A calf struggles neck high in the stew-like mud, kicking frantically to make its way across the mire. Grazers have walked long distances in hopes of finding anything to eat. Some succumb to heat, and vultures can be seen feasting on their corpses in the sludge of the lake bed. In May, President Mokgweetsi Masisi officially declared Botswana to be in drought after months of unevenly distributed rains, heat waves, and dry spells. Rural households have been specially hit and are looking to the government for help. Southern Africa has been hard hit by intensifying extreme weather conditions such as drought and floods, leaving millions in need of food aid. Zambia is in the throes of a drought which has affected the 2018-2019 farming season. Around 2.5 million people are facing food shortages, according to official figures. In Zimbabwe, nearly a third of the 16 million population are in need of aid, and at least half of these face acute. Australia downgraded the Great Barrier Reef's long-term outlook to very poor for the first time Friday, as the World Heritage Site struggles with, quote, escalating climate change. In its latest 5-yearly report on the health of the world's largest coral reef system, the government's Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority singled out rising sea temperatures as the biggest threat to the giant organism. The government agency said, quote, the significant and large-scale impacts from record-breaking sea surface temperatures have resulted in coral reef habitat transitioning from poor to very poor condition. Climate change is escalating and is the most significant threat to the region's long-term outlook. It said, quote, significant global action to address climate change is critical to slowing deterioration of the reef's ecosystem and the heritage values and supporting recovery. But the agency added that the threats to the 2,300-kilometer or 1,400-mile reef were multiple, cumulative, and increasing, and in addition to warming seas included agricultural runoff and coral-eating crowns of thorn starfish. The agency said the outlook downgrade from poor in 2014 to very poor now reflected the greater expanse of coral deterioration across the massive reef, notably following back-to-back coral bleaching events caused by sea temperature spikes in 2016 and 2017. It said, quote, "The window of opportunity to improve the reef's long-term future is now." The conservative Australian government has faced criticism from environmentalists for favoring an expansion of its massive coal mining and export industry over action to curb climate change. Friday's REAP report coincided with the release of new government data showing that Australia's emission of greenhouse gases blamed for climate change continued a 4-year rising trend during the first half of 2019. The government insists it is meeting its emissions targets as set under international protocols, including the Paris Climate Agreement, and argues that Australia's total greenhouse gas output remains far below that of major polluting nations. Environment Minister Susan Ley acknowledged at the release of the Outlook report, quote, "This report calls out climate change as the biggest threat to the reef." But she added, quote, "We are taking the actions that we're required to do under our Paris agreements." Environmentalists said the latest reef outlook put new pressure on Prime Minister Scott Morrison over his support for expanding production of coal, Australia's biggest export. Kelly O'Shannessy, CEO of the Australian Conservation Foundation, said, quote, "Australia must do its fair share in the global effort to tackle climate pollution. That means moving on from digging up and burning coal and gas for our energy." The United Nations had asked to receive the latest upgrade on the reef's health by December so that it can determine whether the site can retain its World Heritage status when UNESCO next considers the issue in 2020. The reef is estimated to be worth at least $4 billion a year to the Australian economy, serving as a magnet for tourists and emblem of the country. Ian Pointer, chairman of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority, said, quote, "The reef remains vibrant, beautiful, and it still is resilient. However, coral reefs globally are declining, including the Great Barrier Reef, and we know why. The reason is climate change impacts that require a global response," unquote. Up next, Germany asks Polish forgiveness 80 years after the World War II outbreak. India sees smartphone boom despite economic downturn. President Trump launches new Pentagon command for space warfare. Shanghai hosts the World Artificial Intelligence Conference. Plus, Red Cross raises awareness and tackles rumors on Ebola virus in Beni. These stories when Eagle News returns. Stay with us. German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier on Sunday asked Poland's forgiveness for history's bloodiest conflict during a ceremony in the Polish city of Wielun, where the first World War II bombs fell 80 years ago.
Ich verneige mich vor den Opfern des Überfalls auf Wielun. Ich verneige mich vor den polnischen Opfern der deutschen Gewaltherrschaft. Und ich bitte Vergebung.
Smartphone sales are bucking an economic slowdown in India that has hit cars, biscuits, and other industries in what analysts say is a reflection of how the devices are becoming a necessity rather than an accessory in the country. India, the world's fastest growing smartphone market, has become a key battleground for global mobile and e-commerce firms as smartphone growth in other countries stagnates or declines. Technology consultancy IDC said the Indian smartphone market recorded its highest ever second quarter shipments from April to June, even as the central bank cuts interest rates to boost the flagging economy. Analysts said one of the key advantages of India as a market, besides its 1.3 billion population, is that more than half of its citizens are still yet to own a mobile phone. Of mobile phones users, half of them still use old feature phones instead of smartphones. According to researchers, the vast country also has the cheapest mobile data in the world. Manufacturers such as Apple and Samsung, as well as e-commerce giants Amazon and Flipkart, backed by Walmart, are pouring resources into India to capitalize on the massive potential for growth. Samsung, one of the top sellers in the premium market in India, has opened what it says is the world's largest smartphone factory on the outskirts of New Delhi to compete against Xiaomi in the cheaper tier of the price-sensitive market. Amazon has meanwhile opened its biggest campus yet in the southern city of Hyderabad in its battle with Walmart.
The global market, smartphone market slowing down. In India, we are estimating almost like 1 billion smartphones will be sold in the next 5 years cumulatively. Last year, almost like 150 million smartphones were sold. Out of that, 80 million smartphone users were the first-time users.
India, an avid consumer of entertainment and sports coverage, particularly cricket, is already a major market for streaming giants such as Netflix and Disney, which owns Hotstar. The country is also the biggest market for communications apps, such as messaging giant WhatsApp, which plans to launch its first payment service this year in India.
A large part of our country has not seen a computer at all. And they have bucked the trend and directly moved to, they've skipped the laptops and computer trend and directly moved to the smartphones. I think it's become so essential as a part of our lives that people would save to buy a smartphone, even if they have to compromise on other things.
President Donald Trump launched a new Pentagon command dedicated to warfare in space Thursday, as American armed forces chiefs see China and Russia pressing hard to erode the U.S. advantage in the newest military frontier.
We will now treat space as an independent region overseen by a new, unified geographic combatant command. The establishment of the 11th Combatant Command is a landmark moment. This is a landmark day, one that recognizes the centrality of space to America's national security and defense.
Chinese technology giants Alibaba, Tencent, and SenseTime showcased their latest artificial intelligence applications at the World Artificial Intelligence Conference in Shanghai.
我觉得 AI 不光能做非常认真严肃的服务于我们这个安防城市政企的这样的一些大的系统，同时还能非常贴近我们每个人的生活，让它呢给我们日常生活的体验带来不同的一种新的增值吧。所以产业的效能，那我认为 AI 下一步最重要的点，或者说最会发生的，那就是跟行业的深度结合和落地，实际的去解决更多的问题，比如说。
Red Cross teams in the DR Congo's northeastern city of Beni visit districts to raise awareness and tackle rumors on the Ebola virus. The Ebola outbreak in DR Congo has shown no signs of easing, with the death toll from the highly contagious virus crossing 2,000.
Certes, Beni résistait auparavant, mais actuellement, avec les différentes équipes de sensibilisation et tout qu'on sort, la population a compris aussi que la maladie existe et qu'il n'y a que la compréhension de la communauté qui mettra hors état de nuire cette maladie. Alors la population tend vers la compréhension.
Hivi ndio bado wasema kwa mfano mtu akona na gonjwa na diabetes hakujua malaria Ebola iko tu mule hatokeke munyumba mtaka sema msema na ile nani Ebola mnafuata mubeba kule basi bado sema baadaye hakufa Ebola iko diabetes msele kwa Ebola mnafuata mubeba peleka kule nani.
Bon, souvent on nous parle que Ebola est politisé, Ebola, voilà, les équipes de riposte s'enrichissent. Ebola, c'est pour aller exterminer les communautés. Ebola, c'est en fait un truc qui ne finira jamais. Et donc, toutes ces questions-là reviennent de temps en temps. Et nous avons...
That is today's Eagle News. Join us again tomorrow for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/eaglenews and on facebook.com/eaglenews. Thank you for watching. I am Rose Papa Angeles, and I am 1 with 25.